Okay, let's solve a mystery that so many of us have dealt with. You know that sharp, nagging pain in your foot? The one that feels like a tiny rock is stuck in your shoe? But when you check, there's absolutely nothing there. Well, today, we're diving deep into the common foot corn and figuring out what's really going on. It's such a frustrating feeling, isn't it? You stop what you're doing, you kick off your shoe, you shake it out, and nothing. But the second you put it back on and take a step, boom, there it is again. That sharp, focused pain is right back where it was. And this is way more than just a small annoyance. This kind of pain can actually be bad enough to change the way you walk. It can limit the shoes you can wear and even make you skip out on activities you really love to do. So what exactly is this phantom pebble causing all the trouble? Well, to figure out how to get rid of it, first we have to understand what it is we're dealing with. Let's define the painful point itself. Okay, so a corn isn't just any old patch of hard skin. The key phrase here is central conical core. I want you to picture a tiny, hard funnel made of skin, but with the pointy end pressing straight down onto sensitive nerves and tissue. That's the reason the pain is so sharp and so specific. And believe it or not all corns are the same. You've got your hard corns. Those are the dry, really common ones you see on the tops of your toes or on the outside of your pinky toe. But then there are soft corns. These guys form between your toes where it's more moist, so they have this weird, almost rubbery feel to them, and they can be incredibly painful. All right, so we know what a corn is, but the big question is why? Why would our bodies create something so painful to begin with? Well, it turns out it all starts as a defense mechanism, one that gets trapped in a really nasty, vicious cycle. The whole process kicks off with something called hyperkeratosis. I know it's a fancy medical term, but all it really means is that your skin is trying to protect itself. When one little spot on your foot is getting constant pressure or friction, your skin basically panics and says, hey, I need to build a shield here. And it does that by piling on extra layers of keratin, the protein that makes our skin tough. And here's the paradox. This is where it all goes wrong. The skin's solution, the corn, becomes the new problem. It's a true vicious cycle. The pressure creates the corn, but then the corn itself acts like that pebble in your shoe, which increases the pressure on that same exact spot. And that just tells your body to make the corn even bigger and even more painful. It's a defense mechanism that is totally backfired. So where does that initial pressure even come from? Yeah, sure, it can definitely be from tight shoes. But a lot of the time, it's actually our own body mechanics. A perfect example of this is something called supination. This is just when your foot rolls a little too far to the outside when you walk. All of your body weight gets focused on that outer edge, creating this little pressure hotspot that's basically a perfect breeding ground for a corn. Okay, this next part is really, really important because not every hard lump on your foot is a corn. It is so easy to mix them up with calluses or even plantar warts. And if you get the diagnosis wrong, you're going to use the wrong treatment. So let's quickly break down how you can tell them apart. If you look at this chart, the single most useful piece of information for you is the difference in pain. Here's the trick. If pressing directly down on the spot causes a sharp, focused pain, it's probably a corn. You're basically pushing on that central core we talked about. But if it hurts more when you squeeze it from the sides, it's much more likely to be a plantar wart. That simple little test can tell you so much.
All right, we've identified the problem. We know how to tell it apart from other things. Now for the good part. How do we get some relief?
For immediate care you can do at home, you can start with some simple, gentle things. Soaking your foot in warm water, carefully using a pumice stone, and of course switching to shoes that have more room. But look at that big warning at the bottom. Please be so careful with those over-the-counter medicated corn removers. They use acid to work, and that acid can't tell the difference between the corn and your healthy skin around it. You can actually end up with a chemical burn, making everything a whole lot worse. For those really stubborn corns, the best and most effective relief is going to come from a professional. They can perform a simple procedure called debridement. It sounds a little scary, but it just means they carefully pare away the layers of hard skin and, this is the most important part, they remove that painful central plug. The relief is often immediate. This quote from one of the sources we looked at really hits the nail on the head. It says, the corn will disappear when you remove the causative mechanical forces. All that means is, you can shave a corn down 100 times, but if you don't get rid of the pressure that created it in the first place, it's just going to grow right back. You have to fix the root cause. So, That brings us to the most important part of this whole conversation. How do we break that vicious cycle for good? How do we stop these things from ever coming back? The absolute key to long-term prevention is fixing those faulty mechanics. If your shoes are the problem, hey, that's an easy fix. But if the problem is the way you walk, like that supination we talked about earlier, you've got to find a way to correct that motion. And that is exactly where something like custom orthotics can be a game changer. The whole idea behind an orthotic is actually pretty simple. For a problem like supination, it basically acts as a tiny, perfectly angled wedge inside your shoe. It gently tilts your foot just enough to shift your body weight off of that overloaded outer edge and spreads it out evenly across the parts of your foot that are meant to take the load. It's really simple cause and effect. If you take away the pressure, the corn has no reason to form. Now, in some very rare and persistent cases, especially if there's an underlying bone issue like hammer toe causing the pressure, surgery might be the final option. It's definitely a last resort, but the goal is exactly the same as everything else we've talked about: permanently correct the bad mechanics and get rid of that pressure for good. So that little pebble in your shoe, it's not just some random annoyance. It's a signal. It's a very specific message from your body telling you that something, either your shoes or the way you move, is creating a harmful point of pressure. It really leaves us with one final thought. Your feet are the foundation for everything you do. Are you actually listening to what they're trying to tell you?